Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I'm going to talk about how to become a good PhD supervisor or to be a good PhD advisor, depending on what part of the country you're from. I still haven't sort of figured out, or what part of the world you're from in terms of which one is used more often. So if you don't know, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I'm actually traveling at this moment. That's why the surrounding is a little bit different. In California at a conference, and I'm in my hotel room right now. So I'd talk about this particular issue in my hotel room. And so how do you actually become a good PhD supervisor and advisor? So first of all, I'd like to point out, I'm an assistant professor. I'm not quite there, I don't think, in terms of the skill of becoming an amazing, PhD supervisor and advisor, but I have seen a lot of people do some really wonderful things, and there's a lot of things that I would like to do as I grow and mature as a person. So I thought I'd actually like to suggest and talk about some of these particular issues, what I've seen along the way. And then there's also a lot, I've read a lot and did a lot of research thinking about these kind of issues in terms of management. That's something I do study, and this comes up from time to time in terms of how to actually manage organizations, right? And that's really what you're doing as a PhD supervisor or PhD advisor. You really are managing, if you haven't sort of realized it, you are managing your own little small company when you are a PhD supervisor and advisor. So what is it that you really should look for? So first of all, I don't know of any courses out there in terms of PhD supervising training. There probably should be a large course about that, and because it's really difficult, it's ambiguous. Nobody really tells you about what are the right things to do, and it's just really difficult to sort of figure out what to do next. And it's a lot like being, a PhD student. You're kind of making things up as you go, or it's, a lot like being a parent, right? One of the funny things, I've got 2 little kids, and one of the funny things that I've realized is how much that my parents did make things up. I used to think that, wow, they know so much, and how wonderful is it that they're my parents, and I just had very, very probably unrealistic expectations of what they were actually doing. And now I realize, now that I'm a parent, yeah, ooh, you do make up a lot of stuff, and you're kind of going through with a lot of issues. But anyways, so if you're a PhD supervisor, in terms of, this is what I sort of think, and this is what you might be trained in terms of, if you're to take a college business course and whatnot, and some of these issues. So the first thing is, you should be looking at how to acquire, select, and nurture resources that can turn into something that is a lot bigger than what you're doing. And so who are those resources? That's really the PhD students or master students or graduate students, whoever it is that you're looking at. You're trying to look for ways to acquire, first of all, select and acquire. So you have to think about different ways to find these individuals that are outstanding, right? So you probably, if you bring donkeys into your lab, then they're probably going to be donkeys, right? But if you bring thoroughbreds into your lab, they're probably going to be thoroughbreds. So you really want to select the people that are going to do a very good job at the beginning, and it's not always clear. That's one thing that a lot of people sort of point out, but you should look for things like, what was their performance before, do some things like behavioral interviews, for example. How would they handle a certain issue? Yeah, just spend a fair bit of time interacting with them, see if there's any sort of proof of performance before, and look for those kind of issues like that, or look for those kind of indicators of what performance might be going forward. And then you acquire and select those particular individuals, and then once you do that, you want to sort of nurture as much as you can that particular resource with PhD students, and allow them to grow and develop on their own, such that they can be something beyond what you're doing, right? And that's really what you're looking for, is how do you actually grow this person. So again, it's a lot like being a parent, of how they can actually do something that's much bigger and better than what you're currently doing, right? So a huge part of it is helping them and training those particular individuals and then letting go a lot of times and letting them make their own decisions along the way. And my own advisors, for example, during my own PhD, they did a lot of letting go. And I imagine now that I'm in that kind of role and I've had done some things like that, there really is a lot of, it is challenging, and you do have to let go, and you have to realize that is part of the advisor supervisor relationship in terms of the graduate students that you're looking for, right? Um, and then I think that's something that's really important that that people maybe neglect is that there is a lot of help and just guidance along the way that you need as a PhD student. And I'm not talking about like, academic, go read this, go read that, but just like life issues come up and dealing with those life issues. I know I was a giant pain with my supervisors or I just there is a lot of life that happens during a PhD. It's 5 years, and you do become, close friends, and you do develop a relationship with your advisors, simply because they're giving you guidance in a lot of different things with your life. You're really an informative part of your life. So that should be an important part. I know some people probably might disagree with that particular issue because, that work in home life shouldn't be sort of mixing and matching, but that's really part of the whole development of being a PhD. And an effective PhD is simply learning how to deal with those kind of issues and navigating those issues. So if you go look for somebody that's going to be real with you and be honest with you, that's going to help you out. And then finally, I think is having the skill as a PhD advisor to set an appropriate standard for that particular PhD student. And that's going to depend on the PhD student and what their current standards are and where it's going to be. So you have to judge what that standard is, how much you should push them, what level where are they expecting to go in terms of their outcomes, right? And if they're expecting to go to very high level institutions, then they're probably going to be pushed, and that should be okay. And as long as you continuously acknowledge the reason why you're being tough, and just be open and honest, is simply to develop them as a scholar. That is pretty good. And as long as you're communicating that you're trying to develop them as a scholar, we're trying to develop this particular idea. That's a really nice thing to do, right? And it sometimes might take a few years to have the PhD student, acknowledge that and really, if you're watching this, if my advisors are watching this, yeah, I'm acknowledging it now. You're really supportive, and I do realize that having very high standards it's tricky and it's difficult, but thank you. Uh, but at the same time, you have to be very, very supportive along the way, and think about the whole relationship as like a teaching sort of slash parenting role, not like parenting in sort of derogatory way, but allowing this person to grow and develop into more than what you currently can do yourself. So, what you should be viewing, I personally think a PhD supervisor or a PhD advisor should be doing is viewing themselves as a really small piece of the puzzle in terms of developing this person as a scholar so that they can go and do things on their own. And once they're done their PhD, that they will be able to do things on their own and just be able to pick up a problem, run with it, solve that particular problem, and that they can develop something all on their own, right? So you're looking for ways to leverage your current abilities and what you can do and to help out those PhD students going forward so that they can actually prosper and to do well. And that's what I view myself as a parent. I'm not there to set the rigorous standard for my kids. I'm there to make sure that they're actually going to grow up to be good adults, not to be good kids in any sort of way. So if they make mistakes and have fall along the way, that is kind of normal, and you should expect that. If you're a PhD student and you're watching this, or if you're thinking of doing a PhD, you're going to make mistakes, and your advisor and supervisor is going to make mistakes along the way, and that's kind of the process. That's what it's about, and that's really what, like, it's a lot like parenting. You're kind of making things up as you go, but you're trying to develop, in the long run, something that is going to be very helpful and it's going to help out that particular person. And that's what I'm expecting. I'm hoping. My kids are still young, 6 and 8, almost 9, and I'm hoping that they'll grow to be just civil, amazing human beings, right? And that's what I'm expecting out of myself. And when I see other people that are doing a fantastic job of advising and being, some sort of supervisor role as a PhD, they are, they are truly developing human beings and scholars as human beings. And if you can do that, you've done a lot. And really, that's what you should be doing, right? Is doing things like setting appropriate expectations and being very clear with those expectations and giving guidance whenever you can, letting go as much as you can. These kind of things are really, really helpful, and they will help that particular individual grow and develop going forward. So hopefully you like this video. I apologize once again for being in a hotel room. But anyways, give me a thumbs up if you like it, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, take care. Bye.